Good afternoon, everyone. It's 5:15 and it looks like all members are present. So I'm calling the Policy and Personnel meeting to order. It is 5:15. Michelle, may I have roll call, please?
Wong,
Here.
Levy,
Here.
Jacobs.
Here.
I have Wong in the boardroom, and Levy and Jacobs are virtual.
Okay. May I have approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the agenda. Any other discussion or questions? All right, hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 Okay, the agenda is approved. May I have approval of the August 11th minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes. Any questions or discussions?
I do have a point for discussion. On number 3, personnel items, I made the motion to go into closed session, and then I shared that I didn't have a concern with employee recs, but it was a closed minute notes. And then Kyle intervened and said, no, you can't do that, which I appreciate. But that's not reflected in the minutes. It just says that the motion was made, second, and carried, and then it says we didn't go into closed session. And I think that's really important because that's an important thing for people to know that I learned at our last meeting.
Thank you, Amy, and I learned that as well. Michelle, could you add that to the minutes? And then,
Absolutely.
And just to clarify, you cannot go into closed session to adjust closed session minutes, but they have to be addressed in closed session. So if there's not an alternative reason to go, then they carry.
okay, so then we go ahead and make that adjustment, but then do we go ahead and vote on it at this time then, or shall we wait?
Can we have a motion to approve the minutes with the adjustment as stated?
I'll second. Amy, you okay? Any questions or discussions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All in favor of approving the August 11 minutes with that adjustment regarding the closed session minutes, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you. The motion of the minutes passes. Next on the agenda is items for discussion, and we have one item, and that's letter A, 500 series policy and policies, and policy resource guide review calendar. Patrick Kieser, would you like to share your ideas for the policy resource guide review calendar, please?
Thank you, Board Member Jacobs. What is attached in the agenda is a spreadsheet of the 500 series from our master policy log. It is the series that has not been touched recently. What you see listed in there are all of the policies that are in our master policy log. You'll notice that some of them are highlighted, that they say date last approved, no policy, just a placeholder. I promised the committee that I would bring a recommendation for consideration and feedback as to an approach. What I propose is that we would break this series of policies into chunks of about 10 to 15 policies. And what you'll see on the right-hand side is you'll see a kind of a shaded box where you have the number 1. So if the committee agrees, then what we could do is take the first set of 13 policies And the reason why I have them broken out with a spacer in there is I've tried to lump policies based on their connections to one another. So the 510 to 522 really talk about overarching goals and conduct. 522s really talk about drug and alcohol use and drug testing procedures. The 522.2s are misconducts and so forth. So what I put forward to the committee is simply we could address across this the rest of this calendar year, taking these chunks, first printing off these, including the policies that are just placeholders, having the appropriate administration go through these, have the committee go through the same set of policies, and then come together with suggested updates from both parties. I would take responsibility of consolidating those recommendations from the committee as well as from administration, and then present to this committee a draft of what the policies could be. Some policies may not need any updating, in which case the recommendation might be just that we revisited it. Other policies may be recommended for elimination or significant revisions, in which case we will go through the process. That being said, all of that work would happen here in committee, and when the committee feels that a policy is ready to be forwarded to the full board, we would, the committee would make that recommendation and motion. Once we get down to a point where a chunk is almost completed, we could start on the next chunk. So then we would move down to the next block of 13 policies and kind of just keep that going until we get through the entire series. Questions, comments, suggestions?
And first, I have to apologize because I'm using first names and I'm trying to play by Robert's rules. So, Board Member Levy, please accept my apology earlier for calling you by your first name. I know. Thank you. And Board Member Levy or Board Member Wong, do you have any questions?
Board Member Jacobs, I do have a question. What kind of a timeline are you talking about here? Are we looking at trying each month to clip off a section, or is it dependent upon the amount of work that's necessary if there's not as much revision that you just kind of flow through those and move on to the next grouping?
Yeah, I would look at this in terms of, would probably take about a month for us to, if we go with this plan, take about a month for us to print, allow both the committee and administration to go through and take a look at it and then consolidate. If we could get that done in a month's time, we could then, a month from now, bring forward some recommendations. That is up for discussion. Some of these might be just very straightforward and will be like, we can move them forward very quickly. Other ones we might say, you know what, we're gonna need to work on this one. What we don't want is we don't want to have like 5 of them that need some real serious deep discussions and hold up the process. So I'm really trying to look at it from a standpoint of mixing in some of the deep work with some of the ones that are just like wording updates and so forth.
Thank you.
I have a question, Dr. Kieser. So I had a couple, so let me, oh, for goodness sakes, if I don't write them down. It came back. So I was told by a previous board member that, and I'm not sure when it was, but the recollection was approximately 5 years ago. These were all looked through again, and I don't know, obviously none of us were around. And I don't know, John, or office or board member Wong, if you were here or not, but Mrs. Shope, was that accurate? Did we recently go through these? And if so, I guess my question is, and my question also, I guess there's a two-parter. Dr. Kieser, how are we going to, as we go through these, make sure that we mark that they've been looked at with the date? So I don't know who wants to answer first.
I can tell you that the 500 series did not get reviewed when the rest of the policies were getting reviewed.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so Dr. Kieser, then we would make some notation that we looked at them, so, going forward in the future, we'll know?
Correct. So I would recommend as a practice that when we systematically go through a series, we would say last approved would be the date. So even if there is no change, we could move, a recommendation to the committee could be to move forward to the full board approval with no changes, so that then we would update the records to say that this series was in 2020.
Okay, I think that's great. All right. I think that sounds like an excellent plan. I'm looking forward to looking through all of the policies personally. And I'm sure that board members Wong and Levy are as well. I think there are quite a few that need to be updated. Board member Levy, did you want to add something?
Yes, thank you. It's just a logistics question. One, I know that our normal communication, if it's something that pertains to our committee, then we email you directly. Since Board Member Jacobs is the committee chair, do you want our questions to go through her to you? And then my second logistics question is that you mentioned printing things off and allowing people to review. Do you envision printing off the entire 500 series for all of us, and then we just use those kind of blocks as our markers as when things will be reviewed? And if yes, how soon do you think that would happen?
That's a very good question. If the committee is comfortable with the approach, I would have done just the first block, but I would work with Ms. Shope to, if the committee would like, to print off the entire 500 series, so that way if people wanted to work ahead with ideas, they certainly could. So I'm absolutely open to that approach.
I personally like that idea, since I already accidentally started, as Dr. Kieser knows today, and Board Member Levy. And I'm fine, Dr. Kieser, with things going directly through you, since obviously they're going to reach out to you because you have the answers I do not have. And then if you could just update me, prior to when we have our weekly or our meeting before we meet. Does that sound reasonable?
That does sound reasonable. So committee members would be able to email me directly around questions and suggestions around policy, and then I would bring forward to policy committees the consolidated revisions as we get them, working with a timeline of 1 month from today to start bringing forward recommendations as we get them. So we might not have all 13, but we'll bring forward what we have at that time for the discussion.
Thank you. Anything else, board members?
Yeah, I just want to get clarification on this. So
Sure.
within the next few weeks then, or next week or so, can you email us and state, here's the grouping that we're going to go through. Please be prepared to discuss this on the next board meeting, policy and personnel date. Would that be?
Yes. So to answer your question for clarification, yes. What I would do, my understanding of what I'll do is Ms. Shope and I will get to the committee the entire 500 series. The expectation is to work on the 510 through 522.11 rule, 522.2 rule 1. Those 13 policies would be the first group that we would review. You would have access to the full policy, so if you felt compelled to look ahead and put your suggestions down so that when we get to that block, we could move a little bit faster, that would be individual decision. But then a month from now, if we are ready with recommendations for all 13, would bring all 13. If we had, say, 10 of them ready, we would bring those 10. So that way we would get the process started.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. It sounds like we are ready to move on. So we are now at personnel items, and we are going to be looking at August 25th, 2020 Employment Recommendations, Exhibit A, Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C. Is there where are we at? I guess I personally would like to go into closed session now as chair. Since I'm still learning, I can go ahead, or do I need one of you two board members to read our... Actually, I do need one of you to read it because my one computer's not working and I don't have it in front of me.
I move that we convene the Policy and Personnel Committee into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C of the Wisconsin State Statutes relative to considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility.
Okay, I'll second that.
I'll second.
Oh, can you second it, Jeff?
I'll second it.
I mean, board member Lee. Oh, not Levy, board member Wong. Oh my gosh. Okay, I think I need some coffee tonight. All right, I have a motion and a second to go into closed session. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say
Point of
aye.
order. That has to be a
Do you
roll
need roll
call.
call?
Oh, I thought I did that after we did the, I have to do roll call before we?
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. Michelle, roll call, please.
Jacobs?
Aye.
Levy?
Aye.
Wong?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we are now going into closed session, so we will be back and open and a little bit public. Thank you. is Dan or Dr. Kieser here? There he is. Okay.
I'm here.
All right. Everyone's here, back? All right. Awesome. All right. We are now back in open session, and we're back to the personnel items from August 25th, 2020, Employment Recommendations Exhibit A. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel items, employment recommendations?
I move that we approve the employee recommendations for August 25th, 2020.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the August 25th, 2020 employment recommendations. Are there any questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right. We are now are there any items for future agendas, board members or administration? Okay. Let me just check my chat. I don't believe I see anyone. Okay. Then our next meeting date will be September 8th, 2020, with the time to be determined, and we're now at adjournment. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for adjournment. Any questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
All right, it is 6:08. Michelle, are you ready? Okay. It is 6:08. I'm going to call the Governance Committee meeting to order. Michelle, may I have roll call, please?
Larson,
Present.
Levy,
Here.
Wong.
Here.
All members are present with Larson and Wong in the boardroom and Levy virtual.
Thank you. May I have approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any questions regarding the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Brings us to the minutes for July 28th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'm actually not seeing the minutes in board docs.
Okay, so we could move to postpone them until our next meeting.
Motion to postpone the approval of the minutes for July 28th, 2020 to the next meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to to postpone the minutes for July 28th, 2020 until our next meeting. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion passes and the approval of the minutes has been postponed until our next meeting. Brings us to 2A. So Michelle, Dr. Kieser, and I were working on the board calendar, and it's kind of an enigma wrapped in a riddle, and some things where there's like, one, just an item like student data, but no explanation, what kind of student data, is it a subgroup? So we're going to need some time to work on it. So Dr. Kieser is going to work with his cabinet, help find all the statutory responsibilities, as well as a description of what that entails. So my vision for the board calendar when we're done, so we'll work on it over the next 2 months. So at our October meeting, that last Tuesday when we meet, we'd have a document that not only has an agenda item with when it should appear, but also like whether it should go, which committee it should go to, a brief description of what that agenda item needs, the purpose of it, as well as if it's a DPI requirement or statutory, then also would have a link to that DPI website or to that state statute, so that anyone could pick up that board calendar and be able to use it and work with it rather than the way it is now. So I was hoping that we would have it done, but as we got into it, turned into a bigger project with more unknowns than we had anticipated. So we're going to work on that for 2 more months. But I wanted to give an update on that. Are there any questions about the board calendar?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have begun our policy suspension where we're going to hold off on that Tuesday special board meeting and just stick with the 4th Tuesday regular board meeting, correct? That's in conjunction with what you just described?
That's correct. Yep. And
Thank
so
you.
some of that too is like, are there certain reports that could go to a committee rather than going to the board agenda? So, yep. So in 2 months, I can bring that back and we can talk about that if everything makes sense. Okay, so moving on to the board member professional development survey. I put this together and it should be attached as a PDF file, but it's a Google form that could be sent out to board members and filled out electronically. I know that when we had spoken about it, there was feedback. We want to make sure that board members could have, opportunity for open-ended questions. So I covered some areas briefly to try to get a feel as to what board members felt like they were prepared for, and what board members still feel like they need more support in or more understanding of, and then as well as getting feedback on some of those, like those workshops and webinars that we had done. So I'm looking for any feedback that you may have or any questions. Go ahead, Board Member Wong.
President Larson, I was kind of curious on 11 and 12. Can you, or 11, 12, and 13, I guess. Did I miss something there, or were there supposed to be more options?
I think I'm going to go in and look at it through the attachment rather than the actual document. Okay, so which numbers were those?
11, 12, and 13. You had mark only one oval, and you had option 1 for each one.
Oh, okay. I will check. I will look into those and check. 11, 12, and 13. Okay. I think they may have been, I was trying to add to another section, so they may have been, yep, those aren't, I can delete those. Those weren't anything. I was trying to duplicate a question and it wasn't letting me do that. So I can remove those right now. Are there any other questions or comments or feedback?
I do. One,
Yeah.
I think this is really good, and I love the open-ended questions because then you can get to kind of nuances of things. So I appreciate that. The one thing that I would specifically go after is for our committee chairs, if there are additional resources for creating and requesting motions. So if you're a chair and you have an idea of what the motion should be, is there a request to make the motion, et cetera? But I think if we can tighten up how we formulate our motions, that would be helpful. And then if there was a agenda setting kind of format or template, and then you work with whomever you're partnering with to make those agendas to like make it work for you. But that would be helpful as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I will add something regarding asking and clarifying motions for committee chairs, then as well as like an agenda setting, like process or template.
A template for a process, and then, for example, Oversight and Finance Committee. If I'm working with Dr. Keiser to set the agenda for that, like a template, and then between the two of us, we can kind of work out
Okay.
what works best for us. But just like a starting point for someone who is coming in new. Like I feel like we've got it now, but that would be really helpful to have for someone from the beginning.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I will work on that. Is there anything else about the survey or questions or feedback?
I think some of it's pretty obvious, but just want to create, I guess, accountability and expectations for the entire board. How do you plan on using this data?
I would, so for example, things that the board felt the learning was good learning, if those webinars and workshops were good and beneficial, that we would look ahead to the spring and any potential board members, anyone running for the board, we kind of identify those days that there were some good learning opportunities to ensure that board members, if they're newly elected, could attend, so that there's not a conflict. But then also making sure that that's something that's on the board's radar every year, that these are beneficial workshops, and put it into part of the orientation process. That's one of the questions I asked was, is this beneficial like really only as a new board member, or is this beneficial, do you think, as a veteran board member to go again? So, then also just reflection of what we have learned so far, and then where our learning needs to go yet this year. What areas do people still want support in or want to learn about? And then also, we've spent a lot of time together as a board. So, do people want that to be a workshop where we all come together, or if we are able to find like books or written resources, would we rather do like a book study, or if we're able to find a webinar or something that we can do independently? So everyone has a little bit of learning style, so then being able to use that knowledge to find learning sources to meet those needs.
I like the idea of setting some standards here, because I think that this has been lacking probably for a long time within the board. Along with that, though, if we're going to go down this road, I would set consistencies with this evaluation process as well, because I would like to see it in a year that we go through the same process to determine, are we getting the same feedback from individuals, or is there additional information that we need to bring forward?
Okay, good point. Thank you. Anything else, Board Member Levy? Or no, nothing else? Okay. So that then will bring us to our meeting closing. Our future meeting date will be the 4th Tuesday of September. 28th. The 28th. Okay. Yeah, yep. And we will meet probably about the 6 o'clock time again, but the time will be determined. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry, it's the 29th.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second to adjourn the governance committee meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. See you at 7.